Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I wanted to bring you guys a Kid Kaiju review, mostly because I feel like of the three new characters, Hellcat, Kid Kaiju, and Robbie Reyes, he's the least maybe popular. He's definitely the newest to the Marvel comic universe, but also I think he's the most misunderstood, and I think he also has the most potential to be a very strong character. Now, we all had high expectations for Kid Kaiju, given the fact that he is a paywall character. If you don't know what that means, you have to actually pay money in order to get his bios, in order to build up the character's strength. You cannot get him through any traditional free-to-play methods, unless you count, Google quizzes or Google surveys that give you cash for your time. Now, the reasons why I think that Kid Kaiju is potentially a very strong character, for one, he has a very interesting skill set in that his summon, like Moon Girl's, does take a lot of aggro and does deal a respectable amount of damage. I also think that the summon does tank a lot of hits as well, which is important because as a speed character, Kid Kaiju has very low defenses and very low HP. So he can't really take a hit like most speed characters. He doesn't have any guaranteed dodge or anything like that to buff up his survivability. And so he does really rely on Hivo, maybe the same way that it reflects in the comics. I have not read them yet. So at least thematically it fits. And it does leave room for more development and more improvements that could really take the character up a lot of notches. Some characters, even if they get, a really damaging skill, or even if they get a buffed tier 2 passive, it doesn't change their kit. And by kit, I mean the skills. I do harp on this topic a lot, but I do think that in this case, it is very important to look at Kid Kaiju's skills when addressing the character's potential value, because right now it's low. If I'm going to give a summary of this review, it is don't invest in Kid Kaiju. There are much better paywall characters, of course, Carnage, Amora. There can be arguments made for even Gwenpool and Clea, even though they're not technically super paywall, that will give you more impact initially and perhaps at tier 2 as well than Kid Kaiju. However, I really wanted to do this, and I really wanted to highlight the strengths of this character for the future. In case he gets his uniform, which I'm speculating that he will, in case he gets, some kind of buff or some kind of rework or some kind of augmentation, the character could become one of the premier speed characters in the game of the class. And so I want to go through his skills, and I really want to highlight why I think that is. He has a few curiosities about his skills that make them potentially very powerful. So I want to jump into Villain Siege. First of all, just to give you guys an example, make sure he's not on any of these recommended lists. Good, he's not. And then we're going to jump in against Ultron. Great. And we're going to see just what I mean about Kid Kaiju, because the skill preview really doesn't do it justice, but we will see it here. So aside from Hivo, his summon, who does tank a lot of hits, and you'll see that you can safely just run away at the beginning of the match, and Hivo will just, take the punches for you. You also have a couple of other interesting quirks. So as we can see here, he's going to get Ultron's attention pretty early on, and I can just kind of stand here. So the first thing that's really good about Kid Kaiju's kit is his 3rd star skill, which is a buff. Here we go. So he gives himself a dodge buff and an all attack buff. I don't have the skill fully leveled up to level 6, so that's why the numbers are a little bit clunky at 9% and 11%, but it gives him a slight bit of a damage boost and survivability with the dodge, and you can keep buffing yourself up like this. The more important one, I think, and guys can see here that Hivo's damage is not bad at all. He's probably going to kill Ultron by himself. Aside from that, Kid Kaiju has a very interesting 5th skill. And this 5th skill is very interesting because of the fact that it's persistent. So even if Kid Kaiju dies in this case, that tornado of flames will continue, and that damage is massive. That skill deals massive damage. It one-shots plenty of opponents in timeline even after they've killed Kid Kaiju. So I think the persistence of that skill, especially for game modes where you have to deal damage with points over time, I suspect in the future, perhaps Extreme Alliance Battle, Kid Kaiju could be very powerful because you can cast this skill and then run away. As you can see, the skill continues on for quite some time. The other thing that's good about his kit is his second skill, which is a long instant iframe. From the moment you cast the skill, he becomes immune. He also has a very good pushing skill for Shadowlands in his first skill. As you can see, that sent Ultron flying across the screen with just one tap. And then his fourth skill is pretty average. But overall, as you guys can see, he has a lot of tools available to him. So he basically has 6 skills. He's got a self buff. He's got a high DPS 5th skill that's persistent that you can kite after casting. He's got a second skill, instant iframe. He's got a first skill effect that pushes a lot, which again doesn't work in World Boss and doesn't really work in Extreme Alliance battle situations, but does work in things like Shadowland. And he also has that instant iframe action going on. So he's got quite a lot of tools at his disposal. Right now, he doesn't have a lot of team-ups, so this is probably definitely the best team and the best setup that he has. He only has one more with Moon Girl. But I think the character does have potential, and I think the potential comes from his skills. Taking a look at his gears, he's got physical attack and ignore defense on the first, which is very good. Ignore defense is a premium stat. All defense and HP, both very strong. Attack speed, crit damage, not the greatest, but attack speed is useful now more than ever. And then skill cooldown, which is excellent, and crit rate. So he's got a very strong kit. He can cover his skill or his stat caps quite easily. As you can see, I'm over the cap on both ignore defense and reduce cooldown. I think I am getting some from my team up, so we can exit out of this to see the true numbers here, but I think they'll still be very good. 47% ignore defense and 36% cooldown, and that's without a very strong obelisk. My obelisk doesn't have ignore defense. I do get it from my cards, but he deals pretty respectable damage despite having what I would call an average obelisk. This can definitely get a lot better. However, I will advocate for something a little bit different. So as you guys saw in the Ultron one, so as you guys will see in a World Boss, if we get hit, Kid Kaiju can't really take a lot of hits. So I do recommend, or I do think it is ideal to give him a defensive setup. I don't think he necessarily needs more damage, and if he's going to be good in PvP scenarios, especially since it's basically 2 against 1 with Hyvo, if he's going to really shine in specific game modes aside from Extreme Alliance battle, because for there you always need a damage proc obelisk, it's better to give him like a 5-second invincibility obelisk and then try to, figure out the other stats that you need, whether you need ignore defense, whether you need ignore dodge for the speed hero day if you want him to compete there or not. As far as the ISO 8 set goes, I think, again, it's kind of a toss-up, but I think an offensive set is better, and it will be better if he gets even more survivability. Right now, if you do want the character to succeed in a lot of PvE content, you're better off going with something defensive like I Am Also Groot, which still has some attack values to it. I think the combined DPS of Hyvo and Kid Kaiju is enough to get him through most scenarios, and to finish most game modes. So I wouldn't necessarily, hard recommend an offensive set. I went with one because I rolled it quite early on and because I just like to do more damage faster, but I have found that my Kid Kaiju is a bit squishy, so I might also try a hybrid of an offensive ISO 8 set with a defensive obelisk with like an invincibility proc or something like that. He doesn't have a uniform yet, but as I mentioned before, I do suspect that he will get one because we have seen the artwork already from the, #1 guy for Marvel Future Fight, who does fantastic work, by the way. As far as farming his bios, we talked about it already. You can only get them by paying money. So when you go into the shop here, you can see that there's this pack that you can buy called the, what is it called? Get 20 Biometrics Daily. So this Gwenpool sticker here, you're gonna have to pay money, kind of a feel bad man type situation, but that's how you get Kid Kaiju if you want Kid Kaiju. Now let's jump into some World Boss to see just how Kid Kaiju performs, just to see how he does against the World Boss. So we're going to put up the exact same team that we had from the main screen here. We're going to use Kid Kaiju's leadership because it gives him all attack and all defense. We're not going to use strikers. Ideally, you would want to have Groot there for the heal passively at tier 2. but if you have a defensive ISO 8 set, or if you have a defensive obelisk, then you may not need that. Unfortunately, because he's a new character to the game, Kid Kaiju does not have that many team-ups, so the best one that we have is the one with both Cho and Elsa. The other thing here is we just have to be careful. Hyvo makes a lot of noise on screen, and he likes to redirect himself in front of me, which makes it so that when Supergiant casts the illusions, I get hit by them. As you can see here, Kid Kaiju's already taken a lot of damage, which is not very good, but he deals damage pretty effectively. He does have also a very nice mix of both energy damage and physical attacks, so he can, you know, deal nicely with both the Black Dwarf types and then the Supergiant types. I do, however, wish that he had more than one iframe, because that's currently his big weakness, the lack of survivability. So I really need to kite a lot, and I really need to be careful, especially because my health is low, and with my setup, I don't have any way of healing myself. But Hyvo is pretty good at taking hits for me and kind of distracting the world boss. We're going to get it here. So it's a pretty fast clear, you know, under a minute and 20 seconds. He does have a boost on his leadership, and there are some team-up bonuses, but you guys can see there that the damage, thank you for the Dimension Rift, on his 5th skill is really the moneymaker, and it's a persistent skill, as we've talked about before, so that's really going to Monster Mayhem, cause a definite mayhem to whoever's taking that hit. As far as his overall value in game modes go, I would say that I think Kid Kaiju is definitely very capable of doing like world boss, story missions, special missions. He's not going to be the fastest clearer, but he will be pretty good, pretty valuable for you. He's good in timeline against a lot of the blast meta, and especially given that he has a summon, so he's got that 2 versus 1. He probably will be quite good in Battle World, although I haven't tried yet. He's not so good so far in Extreme Alliance Battle. He just doesn't have any way of avoiding the meteors consistently, and although he does respectable damage to bump up his score, he dies much more easily than even the likes of Kate Bishop with, you know, 3 iframes. So he does struggle a little bit in that area, but I think in everywhere else and all of the other PvE content, he's good. I haven't seen any whispers or heard anything of him in PvP, but I can see where he could fit in. You know, he's got a lot of AoE, he's got a lot of long damaging skills that last for a long time, almost like a high damage dot effect. And he's got the summon as well, which can take hits for him if the PvP and AI play intelligently enough. Overall, I would say that this character is a work in progress. I don't recommend this as a first paywall character. I don't recommend this even as a second paywall character, but I may be updating my opinion on this when we get future developments to the character, whether he gets a new uniform, whether, you know, he gets something else, whether a new perhaps tier 3 or something like that ascension mode is unlocked that gives the character some kind of survivability, because that's the big issue with Kid Kaiju. He just doesn't last long enough to make use of his pretty robust kit, I would say. There was also the confusion of the tier 2 passive not giving its effect to the team, which is true. So it basically just buffs his leadership from 18 and 18 and 6 to 20 and 20 and 10, which is kind of crap, but the tier 2 passive has a bunch of other effects, so it's kind of a wash. So let me know what you guys think of the review. Let me know what you guys think of Kid Kaiju. I have had a lot of time to play with him, so I'm very confident in my opinion and my review and my ideas, but I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Do you see the potential that I see, or do you think I'm just trying to justify the price that I paid for this character when I mega tier 2'd him? Anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you for the Dimension Rift.